I said to her, "How did you know that I needed to turn my head and see the light?" And she said, "Oh, I didn't know what it was, but I knew you'd figure it out." Recently had a internet friend contact me and said, "Hey, Padre John, I've had this really interesting dream. Will you interpret it for me? Because I don't know what all these symbols mean." And for me, I can help you interpret a dream, but I can't actually interpret it for you. And the reason for that is that there are certain things in life that have symbolic meaning, and there's sort of a generalized archetype of meaning, but all those archetypes can be so easily broken um, by our own personal experience. Um, for instance, um, snakes archetypically um, tend to be something evil. They tend to be something scary. Um, there are interpretations of snakes because they shed their skins. It's a resurrection symbol, a new life symbol. Um, but if you're somebody who has pet snakes and loves snakes, that can have a completely different meaning for you. So, best thing to do when you have dreams that you're trying to figure out, best thing to ask, number one, is what am I to be learning from this message? And if that's not helping you, or if you still want more, you can ask yourself the question, um, what does this particularly prominent symbol mean to me? Where have I seen it before? How did it make me feel? Um, why in this position in this dream? And I use myself as an example. Um, I had a dream not long ago of sitting down and slowly peeling a pomegranate. And I remember in my dream, I was counting out the pomegranate seeds. And I was wondering, why was I having this dream? I actually had it several times where other stuff was going on, but there was a point in time where I was sitting down, cutting open a pomegranate, and counting the seeds. Well, traditionally, and particularly in Jewish tradition, and this is where my own personal knowledge and understandings had to come into play. A pomegranate for archetypal reasons. Um, it's symbolic with Persephone, the Greek story, where she ends up in the underworld because she ate the pomegranate seeds in the underworld and had to go back. Um, some stories, particularly Persian creation stories, the pomegranate is equivalent of the apple in the Garden of Eden. But my understanding, for me, is pomegranates, and particularly pomegranate seeds. The ancient Israelites used to state that the number of pomegranate seeds were always the number of the Jewish laws, the 618 laws that law of Moses requires you to follow. And so I said to myself, why am I sitting here counting through the laws of Moses? And then I started to think about the context of it, and I think part of me was questioning what laws are most significant, which laws, quote unquote, matter. And the result of the story is I came back to my own understanding of the Christ story, which says the law doesn't matter anymore. Don't worry about what the law is. Don't worry about the 618 laws, um, because God gave us the Holy Spirit to tell us what's right, to listen to your intuition. And that's also your intuition. That's another thing that you need to use to interpret your dreams. What is the feeling? What is the, listen deeply. What's the message? What's the message? The other dream I had was when I was a child. Currently had a dream for years and years and years of battling this demon, and I was going through this um, sort of a stone castle underneath of it, going from chamber to chamber, constantly battling this demon. And finally, when I was in my mid teens, like 14, 15, I finally defeated this demon. And it ended that he was in this like dungeony room, and I closed and locked him behind bars. And then I closed a steel door, but there was a gap under the door, and I could see like blue light, blue white light from electrical arcs from underneath the door. And then I didn't have that dream anymore until I was about 55. And I started having that dream again. And I would find myself sitting there looking at the bottom of the door, looking at the sparks, and I just feeling this overwhelming feeling of not dread or confusion, because I knew if I needed to battle this demon, I had defeated him long ago. I could defeat him instantly again. And had a really good spiritual director who said, "I see what the issue is. Don't you see what the issue is?" And I said, "No, no, I don't see what the issue is." And I kept having this dream where I was looking, I would overwhelmed looking at the sparks from under the door. And this went on for a long time. And every time I kept seeing my spiritual director, she would say, "I'm not going to tell you. You have to figure it out on your own." And then finally, one day in my dream, I said, "Wait a minute. Why am I focusing on this overwhelmingness? Why am I focusing on the light coming from under the door? This is done. This is over with." And in the dream, I turned my head to the right, and not far off in the distance, I saw an opening, a doorway with lots of light. And I turned and started walking towards the light. I had missed the point. I was focusing on all this old shit. I was focusing on this stuff that was long done and over. One might even say, well, maybe that demon was effing with me again. And I was letting it F with me. Well, all I needed to do was turn and look at the light streaming through that doorway and choose to walk towards the light and new life. And when I told my spiritual director this is what I had come to, she was so smiling and happy. She was like, "I knew you would figure it out eventually." And I said to her, "How did you know that I needed to turn my head and see the light?" And she said, "Oh, I didn't know what it was, but I knew you'd figure it out." And that is the point. Um, don't let it go. Think about it, because that's your subconscious or the divine trying to teach you something, so that you can move on and better your life. So, hope this is helpful when you have dreams you don't understand. It's perfectly good. Somebody like me, I would be asking you questions like, "Well, what does it make you feel like? Where have you seen this before? What comes next? What came before?" So, those are good questions to ask yourself. Um, so, peace, blessings, and in all things, courage, my friends. Be well.